on, we have two other topics to cover. One is the update on Goldsmith Inlet, and the other big topic is dredging. But before I do that, please let me introduce, you probably all know these people, but I do want to acknowledge and introduce Al Krupski, our county legislator, and Scott Russell, our town supervisor, and Glenn Goldsmith, who is our trustee, and he manages some of the dredging issues. Okay, Goldsmith Inlet, last July, we talked about, is it at a tipping point? Do things need to be done? There are many people who have worked on the issue of the inlet and the safety of the water and the homes. And we brought it up at our last meeting in July, and Al Krupski spoke to it and committed to taking some action. I think the action was basically starting the ball rolling with the Army Corps of Engineers and getting out a letter that would formally request, which the Army Corps required. For, I guess, the Corps said, no, the letter had to come from the town. And so, another bureaucracy, the town, and we want to give credit where credit is due, and kudos to you, Scott, and the town board, because this letter that went out, and it's on the desk there if you'd like to see it, went out on August 10th, and our meeting was towards the end of July, so that was pretty fast. And not only did he write a letter asking for this study, but he also committed funds. And so that's putting, you know, your money where your mouth is, and that's our money, and we're glad to see it focus on this very important issue. So I'm not going to read the letter, it's there for you to see, but it did get things rolling, and thank you. And as I said, kudos to you. So what I'd like to ask as my first question is, would you kindly give us an update on where we are? And Al, I kind of explained why they sent out the letter, but please do add any of your input.
Well, we did work through Congressman Zeldin's office on this, and Mark Woolley's a very good local representative for his office. And we tried to work with the Army Corps of Engineers, what would the, you know, to work within the parameters of what they do. And they, in the end, it was they decided that the letter should come from the town. So that the supervisor's office was very happy to do that, and like you said, in a timely manner, asked for the study. A lot of the study area is on county parkland, so the county does have some ownership to the activities there. So we're going to have the partnership of the Army Corps and Suffolk County Parks and Southold Town to, you know, to work out short and long-term solutions there. But, you know, the town was you know, the supervisor wrote the letter right away, so we'll see, you know, what happens. I don't know if there's any other action plan at this time.
Yeah, let me just first say that Al's being humble. Al has actually been at the table the whole time we've talked about the Goldsmith Inlet. He recognizes that there's a county asset to the east of that, and he's wanted to he's sure to make the county aware and remind them time and time again that we have stake in this game. Southold, what we did is we drafted a letter committing to a local share. That would be required under any Army Corps project. What that local share will be down the road, we don't know yet because we don't know cost of implementation. What we're hoping is that local share would be split among 3 agencies, which would be New York State, Suffolk County, and Southold Town. That way we could afford it. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we actually also have Councilman Bill Rowland in the audience today and Trustee Nick Krupski. Nick, I have to say I worked with your dad for years. I've gotten to work with you now, and it's an honor working with you. You're just like your dad. I'm sorry, that was a cheap shot. You're nothing like your dad. And he does walk around using the word power of attorney a lot, so I keep an eye on your money. Yeah, dig up your coffee can and bury it in another part of the farm. No, seriously, it's an honor working with them. the trustees, this is a joint effort. This isn't a town board effort. This is all of the agencies sitting at the table recognizing that there's a historic problem there that needs to be recognized and needs to be resolved.
So one question is there any update, and do you have any idea when the study will be done?
I haven't heard anything from the Army Corps, and this is very similar. Goldsmith Inlet is very similar to Wading River. My district goes all the way up to Wading River, and if anyone's familiar with that, the jetties were built for the Shoreham Nuclear Power Plant years ago, and they greatly affect. And Wading River Inlet actually has a little boat ramp there that the fire department tries to use for access to Long Island Sound to do safety rescue if necessary. But because of the jetties there, it's almost an identical situation where the town spent a lot of money last fall during the regular dredging season, opening that up for navigability for small boats. And within weeks, it was filled in again because it's what Mother Nature decided to do. So physically it's on Long Island Sound. It's a small creek, and there's a jetty to the west. So it's very similar. There's Riverhead struggling with the same issue on how to keep it open. Should they keep it open? What kind of resources to commit? The reality of it is, though, those jetties there at Shoreham, it's a little more difficult because the town doesn't own them, whereas at least at Goldsmiths, the town has a little bit more control in the end over the jetties. At Wading River, it's unlikely in the short term that those jetties are going to be anything but maintained.
Yes, actually, the interest or the willingness for the local share, the letter that went out, was again a necessity for Congressman Lee Zeldin. And again, Mark Woolley at the local level, he's a very good representative for Congressman Zeldin, so that they can go to the federal during the budget process and get it in the budget cycle. Any money that would be allocated to the study would come out of fiscal 2019 for Congress.
Yes, there's a question.
Yeah, thanks for the attention to this issue, but one of the things I think we kind of need to maybe pull back and look at additionally is that we are having increased erosion and movement of, let's say, sand and, not only on the sound side, on the bay side as well. And I think that sort of cycle has speeded up, meaning that, we only have one dredging equipment, I think, for Suffolk County. The permitting process, if you lose your bank or if you lose, if the erosion takes away something in your house or a structure is threatened, that seems to take a long time. We might want to consider going into the future and looking at the cycles are now speeding up. We're having more damage quicker and worse damage than what we thought we would have because we have 100-year storms every 10 years or something. What can be done to address that kind of issue? Because things seem to take a very long time when you have the Army Corps of Engineers and the fact that we're limited with that one dredging piece of equipment for Suffolk County.
So you think Mother Nature's speeding the process up, but you want government to speed up too? We'll get into the whole bureaucracy behind the dredging process after we finish the Goldsmith Inlet, if that's okay. Because it's there's a lot of partners.
Hi. So I have a couple of things I'd like to say about the letter. The most stunning thing was the decision that you want to open Goldsmith Inlet to boating. This is not a community desire. I've been there for 20 years. He said the last time that makes me a newcomer. Other people have been there a lot longer than me. But the desire for boating in Goldsmith Inlet has never been a community priority. And I would imagine that there will be an outcry at the thought of motorboats and jet skis in the inlet. We love our heron and swan populations and peaceful inlet. There is no community pressure to make a motorboating. Right now you can get a kayak in there, which is, I think, the way the community wishes it to remain. So just a couple of things. As everybody knows, so maybe probably 17 years ago, the DEC said that the water was polluted for shellfishing, and since then, I'm just guessing that it's been about that long that shellfishing has been prohibited. And there were a number of water studies that were done, and we were all surprised to find out that the source of the bacteria in the inlet was ducks. We thought it was going to be something man-made. Then there were further studies because there's a pond nearby that's suffering from some pollution, and after a lot of town effort and a lot of town money spent on studies, in 2013, Mark Terry in the Suffolk Times quoted as saying, the testing began as part of a larger effort to restore Goldsmith Inlet, which neighbors, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Terry said, the study tested water from different parts of the inlet during dry and wet weather. In the past, sections of the inlet have been found to contain extremely high coliform bacteria counts, although the analysis shows that the bacteria in Goldsmith Inlet is within a normal range. And then later says testing has been discontinued. 2013, we were all very happy to learn that whatever had happened naturally had caused the inlet to be now with testing within the normal range. There were some local inquiries that what can we do about getting rid of this DEC prohibition? And then we learned that the DEC doesn't really have a process that is functioning for moving things out of the category of prohibition. And that there are some people on your staff here at the town who have actively tried to have the DEC recognize the actually improved health of the water in the inlet. And at the last, there's a new gentleman whose name I can't recall right now, who is one of the town engineers, who last told me that in fact the DEC is now removing changing the status to needs review from the more dangerous sounding level, characterization that they had made before. And I brought this up first because the last meeting, one of the people, in July, somebody stood up in the audience and said that the town was going to be liable for poisoning because the water was so polluted that people could die swimming in it.
All right, so is your question about boating or pollution?
Well,
And Mr.
there are about 5 reasons, things that are being asked by the town for the.
All right, so should we address the boating issue?
Well,
Al, you think you can answer
Do you want me to list
that?
them all first and then they can pick what they want to answer?
No, I think it's going to get confusing. Let's do one at a time.
Oh, not the voting one.
The other one?
I can address the impairments from bacteria one. And the Southold's been very proactive working with the DEC. I've been in a number of meetings. The Peconic Estuary Program is trying to address this as well because shellfishing, whether it's a commercial aquaculture activity or recreational shellfishing or wild harvest, and scallop season is going to open next week, it's a very big concern in town and in the whole Peconic Estuary because it's a really important cultural and economic driver here. The DEC's program for testing has been something that has been kind of not straightforward for decades. And they use these TMDLs, which is total maximum daily load, and those figures they use bad information, a lot of people feel, and the supervisor's been very active in this. That goes back to the 90s that people feel was inaccurate to try to, and then they close these waters to shellfishing. I just got a call from someone in the DEC this week in the office to tell us that they did more water quality testing on an oyster growing operation in oyster ponds, and it will remain closed. And everyone's kind of disappointed with their performance. We're working with Senator LaValle's office very closely on this. It's a real work in progress. And when you point out the problem because it gets into the town's MS4 program and how they comply, and the county's MS4 program, how they comply with the state. So it's a complicated scenario, again, with a lot of different regulatory partners. But the town has been very proactive in trying to work with the DEC to open up more underwater lands. If the impairment's pathogens, bacteria, well, show us the source, let us try to work with that, let us make a decision as a community, how do we address the source of that so we can open these areas up? And so far, that's something that the DEC in the past, that when they close an area, they're not that concerned with reopening it, because that's not their job in that division. But it's certainly in all our benefit to go that route and say, okay, you say you're closing it for those reasons, for those high bacteria counts. What's the source of it? Let's remediate that. Let's reopen the areas.
Right, and so I guess my point is that you're asking the Army Corps in this letter, one of the justifications for asking them to do a project is poor water quality. But, and there's tremendous community concern about the water quality because of this messaging problem. But then on the other hand, according to Mark Terry, the water quality is within the normal range. That would be an enormous relief for everyone in the community to know that the water quality is within the normal range. That message is not getting out. When I tell people about this quote, they look at me like they've never heard that before. And also, you're being, and different engineers that do these consulting projects are being asked to show us ways to improve water quality when the water quality, they say, has improved in its current conditions, the water quality has improved.
Well, yeah, I think there's a difference between swimming in it and consuming the shellfish that are in it, and that's what the DEC is really. It's the way they define how they run their program through EPA standards. That's what they're working on.
Right.
Yeah.
Further clarification, it's the first time that I saw the letter here, and boating doesn't refer to motorboating or skiing. The fact of the matter is an expression of opening it, the channel. I have 2 kayaks, and most of the time I have to portage a kayak even in the inlet. The sand has accumulated, and there are sand barriers in the channel, not at the opening. But the fact of the matter is, when I kayak out, I have to time myself so I can come back in, so I don't have to carry the kayak. I have to actually get out of the kayak and pull it across the sand barrier. Second is that 5 years ago, Mr. Terry made a statement based on an expression that the water was clean. I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning what he said. I am questioning the fact that I used to clam with my children in the inlet, in the pond itself, and we used to eat the clams. There are no clams there. None whatsoever right now. I can tell you that. I can tell you that I walk out there, and it is not just murky. You actually sink down to your ankle, down to your knees in some place, because there's muck. All right? And you can't actually survive in that place. The fish aren't there anymore. So what I'm hearing is a comment made relative to meetings that I don't know if this other person attended the meeting or not, but the fact of the matter is that we're beyond the point of a study. We know there's a problem. We know that it has to be open. We know that it has to be dredged. And let's leave it at that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we're not here to discuss all the issues. It's very complicated. The Army Corps study is underway. And
Everybody's assembled here. I'll just reduce it to one more topic.
please, because we do have to move on. And this topic is an update, not a detailed
Yeah, but this is the first
discussion. And the study is 5 years old that you're referring to, so I think we need new and current information.
So, because you were pressing me for time, the town paid a company called E-Design Dynamics, which was requested by members of the local community to be hired. It paid them $31,000 to do a study, making certain recommendations. That study, which was presented in 2015, I think, so maybe 3 years ago, it might have been 2016. That study said that there has been no appreciable erosion directly to the east of the inlet since 2001. One of the top, you can read this, it's on your website now.
All right, may I make a suggestion that we refer this and ask that that study be shared with the Army Corps?
First, just so you know, it was Coastal Technologies, which is the foremost company of its kind in the country. First of all, you have to understand that Also, the study at the time is a snapshot. Erosion can take place, two successive nor'easters in a row, and the erosion, the profile of the beach changes dramatically. Also, I just want to say, Al keeps talking about how the town's doing a good job. I have to tell you, I haven't been to a meeting yet where Al is not sitting at the table, so I think the county's been a partner. Let me just approach very quickly the navigability issue. The Army Corps of Engineers has certain standards that they need to meet before they will evaluate or study a particular issue like this. Navigability is one of a few issues that they need. That's what gives them the jurisdiction to look at this.
I'm fully aware of that, and I'm aware
And the
that
gentleman was correct.
Make it
And
navigable.
the gentleman was correct in that it doesn't define navigability. It doesn't mean 32-foot egg harvest coming in and out of the channel. Also, the water quality. The issue isn't the water quality right now because it is better, it is good, it does not need a sign, it is not a public health risk. But what we need to look at is water quality 5, 10, 20 years from now. And that is part of the reason it's trying to be a proactive approach to maintaining the quality of the Goldsmith Inlet.
Well, thank you for saying that the water quality would be really great if that message would get out, and also that the water quality is improved with the current landscape that's being described. The water quality has been improved. And the last comment that I will make is that very same study recommended the spit of land that the spit of sand that people say is closing the inlet. They said this spit of sand is the vehicle by which sand, literal drift is bypassing the jetty, because the jetty is now full, bypassing the jetty and going east. And that removing that spit of sand will harm the land to the east. The strong recommendation was that that spit be preserved and allowed to what they call mature. This is the study that is on the Southold Town website right now. So every single thing in this letter is contrary to all of their conclusions that you guys already paid for. Now I will conclude with that.
The purpose of the study, the Army Corps study, is to come up with solutions. So obviously these studies should be part of that, or studies should be done that address the solutions. I have to move on. Can you make it quick?
Real quick.
All right.
Will the Army Corps of Engineers trump DEC if they want to take the jetty down? If they recommend they take the jetty down, will they trump DEC? Or if they recommend it?
I think it's a matter of who's going to pay for it. That's who's going to set the rules.
Oh, really?
Sure, because the Army Corps doesn't own the jetty, so they're going to have limited authority. They can make recommendations, but they didn't offer to pay for anything.
Oh, okay.
And let me just say quickly, the jetty was built in 1964, which is the year I was born, so it was a bad year all the way around.
Can I have a 2-minute rebuttal?
All right, and I apologize if I'm cutting people short, but we do have to keep a schedule. Unfortunately, we're not like the town hearings where they can go on and on and on. And we have a requirement to limit the amount of use even of this